This set menu will allow you to set up this machine for the way you sew. So touch the topaz in the top right corner and then go all the way down to the picture of the tools. Kind of looks like a plier and a screwdriver. Touch that. Now what you're actually going to have is multiple different settings up here. So let's start with the first one, machine settings. This is going to be a very basic setup for language, English, or your language as you might need. A lock screen where you can turn it on, a screensaver that allows you not to be able to touch it. Also too, if you ever need to adjust the screen, if you are, meaning you're touching the screen and it's not really working well, you have to like push it really hard, what's happened is that your screen is just offset a little bit, and by going in here you can recalibrate the screen. The next one, stitch settings, so you can adjust the balance and also override the foot pressure in that area. The sewing settings, this is probably the one you'll be in the most. Twin needle, you can set that for any width of twin needle. We'll do a video on that one. The stitch width safety, so if you get a straight stitch throat plate, you don't want to be stitching zigzag when you have it on. You can actually engage it and it will limit any stitch that you pick. I love that what you set in here will be remembered when you turn the machine off. So if you had that straight stitch throat plate on and you left it on for multiple days and you turn the machine on, it comes up with a little message. By the way, you still have this on. Yes, that's good. Selective thread cutter auto for sewing with this check mark means that like at the end of a buttonhole, it's going to cut for you automatically, which is great. There's a couple stitches it does that without you even having to press it, but if you find yourself not wanting it to auto cut, you can uncheck that box. The sensor foot lift pressure foot, the sensor pressure foot lift. So you can have that automatically lift or not. You can turn that off and on. Also the fix auto, there is a locking stitch that is kind of set up to always engage once you've used the cutter function, and if you don't want that to happen, you can turn that off. So again, these are things you just want to experiment with and see what works for you. Now the last picture is a picture of a hoop, and so these are embroidery settings. Selective thread cutter off for embroidery. There is a time where I do turn my thread cutter off, for example, during very small lettering. I don't want it to cut in between each letter. It makes the back look a little messy. If it doesn't bother you because it's going to get covered up, no big deal, but I usually will turn that off. There is a time and place for that. Auto jump stitch trim, if you don't want it to trim between all your stitches, again, a place for that. Hoop selection, and here you can actually go in, like with this machine came the 360 by 200 hoop and the 120 by 120 hoop. So by checking these little boxes, I have just told the machine which hoops I have, so it can only recommend those hoops. And that is kind of a nice option. Otherwise, if your design would fit in a different size hoop, it will recommend that even though you don't have it. So this eliminates some extra jumping around. So always tell it which hoop. The only thing is when you buy a new hoop, you need to go remember to add it to the list so the machine recognizes it. Presser foot height, so you can adjust how high it can come up. And sensor cue foot for embroidery, if you do purchase that separate foot, do want to go in here and engage that is on, and so it can do what it needs to do with the extra heights. It does allow you to work with a little bit extra thicker fabrics, I've noticed, and gives you a little prettier stitch. So something I would recommend purchasing at your Husqvarna Viking dealer. When you're done setting it up, touch the green check mark, you go back out. Again, anything that you've done in there is going to be saved and remembered as you turn your machine on and off.